Good. All right. Okay, Mr. Tilley, are we ready to start?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Welcome. I'd like to call the August 20th, 2020 West Sacramento Planning Commission meeting to order. We continue to meet via teleconference pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N2920, by which members of the Planning Commission and staff are participating via live video conference to reduce the spread of COVID-19 virus. Via wave cable on our local channel 20 or streaming online through the city's website. Tonight's agenda and all agenda item materials are available on the city's website on the Planning Commission page. All public comments submitted by 5 p.m. via email to the Planning Commission clerk are available for consideration and are posted on the city's website, along with the agenda and link to the live streaming video of this meeting, so that all planning commissioners and community members can see the complete text and submittal information. The Planning Commission clerk will note the commenters for each item. This evening, we are joined by Commissioner Vu. Welcome, Commissioner Vu. With that, we will proceed with tonight's agenda. First item is General Administration Function, Part 1, presentations by public on matters not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Commission. Mr. Clerk, are there any general comments at this time?
There are no public comments on this item.
Okay, we'll move to General Administration Function, Part B, correspondence and staff communication from the Planning Commissioner Secretary, Mr. Tilley.
Yes, a couple items to note for the Planning Commission from last night's City Council meeting. First of all, they conducted second reading on the implementing ordinances for the most recent cannabis project that came before the Planning Commission. I think that was in June this year and early July, so that one now can proceed to its next step. The council also heard a presentation on the final report of the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change last night, which I would say was very well received by the council as a whole. The presentation was done primarily by Ann Stossball, who was the chair of that commission, and also Kate Meese, who's the executive director of LGC. That is a presentation I would also like to bring to the Planning Commission at an upcoming meeting. And then lastly, last night, something that's very important to our work here at the Planning Commission is the council voted to continue work on the streetcar project. It's a complex arrangement, but we are proceeding on that project. A lot of our work that we have seen here through the Planning Commission, including the Bridge District and a lot of the zoning changes that we've made, especially about parking and whatnot, have been a lot with the streetcar project in mind, and that it is going to happen. So last night was an important step. Still a ways to go until we see it, but it was exciting to see that the council wants to continue with that project and emphatically, as a matter of. Okay, and so with that, I'll.
All right, sounds like David, you were wrapping up, but we may have lost. Are you there?
Yeah, so that concludes my remarks at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tilley. With that, we move to the last item on the General Administration Function, Part 1C, which is disclosure of ex parte communication. At this time, Planning Commissioner should disclose any communications they've had on the agenda items. Okay, seeing none, we will move forward with the consent agenda. There are 2 items on the consent agenda, and because of public comment, I think it would be wise to split this and take each item separately, just for sake of clarification and ease. So is there any discussion on item number 2, which is consideration and approval of the minutes from the August 6th, 2020 Commission meeting? I generally see head nodding. So with that, I would look for a motion.
I move to approve item number 2 on the consent agenda, the minutes from our last meeting.
Moved by Ms. Austin,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Castillo. I heard him first. So Mr. Clerk, can we please get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Austin,
Aye.
Commissioner Berliner,
Aye.
Commissioner Leonard,
Aye.
Commissioner Vu,
Aye.
Commissioner Sternfeld,
Aye.
Chair Liebig.
Aye. All right, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 3, which is a 1-year time extension request for the Savoy Vesting Tentative Subdivision Map. Before I turn this over to Mr. Laffey, Mr. Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
There was one public comment on this item that has been posted to the website.
Okay. Thank you. Hopefully the planning commissioners have all had a chance. Well, I know actually the planning commissioners have received the public comment, and these were available for review. So with that, I will turn this over to Mr. Laffey for maybe a brief introduction.
Yes, good evening, everyone. This is a 1-year time extension to the vesting tentative subdivision map 5130. It was approved by the Planning Commission December 7th of 2017. It's a 22 lot. The map would divide roughly a half an acre in the Washington district into 22 lots for small lot townhomes. What's requested tonight is a 1-year extension to that due to the COVID crisis. And you can look through the justification statement. The applicant has indicated that has affected their ability to get the project over the finish line. So that'll wrap it up if you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Laffey. I know this isn't a typical hearing. This is just a 1-year time extension request for a already vested tentative subdivision map. But I did want to break it out because there was a public comment on it, and would like to bring it. So we've opened the public comment period. I'm going to close the public comment period. Would any of the commissioners like to make any comments on this one? Okay, I did want to, I don't see any hands, so forgive me if I missed something. I did want to just comment on this briefly as it relates to an item that Mr. Tilley brought up earlier. I know right now we're discussing a tentative subdivision map, but the comment on parking issues comes up frequently, especially in the Washington specific area. So aside from global pandemic issues, I don't see any substantive changes to the direction of the city, changes to our residents, changes to the city plans that would preclude this project from moving forward. So, I don't see any reason to not grant the extension. But regarding parking, I do understand the real-time issues felt during development, especially when the transportations are not in line necessarily with the exact pace of the development. In this case, some development may be a little ahead of larger transportation options. And City Council did vote last night to move forward on a major transportation project, which our plans are largely dependent on. So, which will ultimately allow for less parking, fewer cars on the road. So these developments do show this need for this type of housing and the need for increased transportation options to reduce vehicle traffic and parking. So I did want to comment and just let the commenter know that I did see the comment, heard the comments. We understand sometimes development comes at weird paces, but the plans to move forward with transportation options are still moving forward. Okay, if there are no other comments, I would, I'm sorry, Ms. Berliner.
Sorry, thank you. So I don't really know the history of this Savoy subdivision, just because this is my second year here. And but I think he does, yeah, I think he does sort of make a point, but at the same time, is there will be ample parking. I also want to comment that there will be ample parking in the subdivision. So it looks like every single unit will get at least once, will get a space. But is that area also where they have, it's permitted parking? So you have to apply to the city for a permit for the street? Is that, am I making sense?
Mr. Laffey, would you like to answer that?
Sorry, thank you.
Yes, that area is within a permit parking area.
Okay. So it's already theoretically sort of controlled parking. So, okay. I understand his plight, but also at the same time, high density development is really good and infill development is really good. So that's it. That's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, apologize, I'm that side of my screen has froze. So I would entertain joys of electronics. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the item as proposed by city staff.
Second.
Sorry, moved by Commissioner Sternfeld, seconded by Commissioner Berliner. Mr. Clerk, would you please do a roll call vote?
Commissioner Sternfeld,
Aye.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Leonard,
Aye.
Commissioner Berliner,
Aye.
Commissioner Austin,
Aye.
Commissioner Vu,
Aye.
Chair Liebig.
Aye. All right, thank you so much. I do look forward to seeing this project get moved forward. Next on the agenda, we're under the regular agenda, item number 4, Housing Element Subcommittee Report. So at this point, actually, I'm not sure, Mr. Tilley, who you had intended on giving a report, whether or not the staff was going to give a report, or if one of our planning commissioner representatives was planning on giving a report.
Well, I'll start with this one, and then I'll invite Raul to jump in as well. We discussed this, I think, a little bit at our last meeting, whereas we want to make sure that this was a regularly agendized item, so that should the commission wish to discuss that matter, we can. And if there's anything specific that you want to make sure our subcommittee delegation, tries to then bring back to the planning commission after they meet with the housing meeting, which Raul is on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, correct?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairperson and commissioners. Yes, that's true. Tuesday, the 25th at 6 p.m.
So our subcommittee members will be getting those packets tomorrow. Is that right?
Packet should be going out tomorrow, sometime in the afternoon. We are finalizing the packets for the special combined meeting.
Okay. And so we'll provide our subcommittee members with a Zoom link, and that meeting will be conducted very similarly to how we're doing planning commission. Realize that meeting hasn't happened yet, but we want to make sure this is an opportunity for our subcommittee members to ask any questions, or myself or Raul about that, what that's all about, and also if there's any particular areas of interest for the commission as a whole that the subcommittee members may want to bring up at the Housing Commission meeting on Tuesday. Now's the time, if you want, to to bring any of those things out for open consideration. And this is just an opportunity to do so. It's certainly not mandatory.
All right, well, thank you again for the subcommittee for stepping up and attending these separate meetings and reporting back. All right, with that, David, was there anything else on the housing element subcommittee?
No, I'm just, we're excited. I'll be at that meeting as well. And so I'm excited about, really rolling up our sleeves on that because there's definitely some urgency to, complete that project by the deadline because if not, we're in big trouble.
David, if I may,
So,
I do wanted to thank the Planning Commission and the subcommittee for joining our Housing Commission next week in the review of the housing element update. As you know, this is a very critical part of the general plan, and we do intend to provide a general overview of the housing element, the update process, and obviously continue to solicit comments from both the Housing Commission and the subcommittee, the Planning Commission subcommittee. The feedback that we get from both commissions is going to be valuable in framing the policies and the programs that will go into the housing element. So we are definitely looking forward to that meeting and anticipate some very good information for you and some great feedback from both commissions. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you. With that, if there are no other comments on the Housing Subcommittee, we'll move on to regular agenda item number 5, which is public hearing regarding the 860 Jefferson Boulevard tentative parcel map 5187. And for this one, Mr. Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
There are no public comments for this item.
Okay. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Allen.
Good evening, Chair Liebig and members of the Planning Commission. The item before you is a request for a tentative parcel map to divide one parcel totaling 1.34 acres into 2 separate parcels. The existing parcel contains a U.S. bank branch on the northern portion of the site, while the southern portion of the lot is vacant. The map is being proposed to facilitate future development on the undeveloped site. The project is located in the Central Business District. The minimum lot size in that zone is 10,000 square feet, and both parcels will meet the minimum size requirements. There will be access to the site from both Merkley and Jefferson Boulevard, and there will be reciprocal access between the parcels. Staff is recommending approval of the parcel map as all the findings can be met. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is on the call, although he does not have a formal presentation for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Allen. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing just in case there are comments of the applicant. Before I jump into it, Kathy, I did have one question. You mentioned reciprocal access to the drive aisles. Will there be reciprocal parking arrangements or requirements, or will the individual lots still have sufficient parking for, non-reciprocal parking agreements?
There will be reciprocal parking as well.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry, I just wanted to ask that really quick. So with that, are there any questions of the applicant or questions of staff? Mr. Sternfels.
I want to explore your previous question just a little bit more to understand the reciprocal parking. If the owner is the same, that's probably not a problem, but if ownership changes of one parcel or another, is that reciprocal parking arrangement part of the conditions of approval, Kathy? Help me understand how that works.
There is not a reciprocal access condition in the conditions of approval.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Sternfels brought up a good point about while the property is under one ownership, you really can't grant an easement to yourself. So the way we have addressed this at times in the past, when if you did have one owner, but a parcel might be spun off in the future, is we usually maybe look for a deed restriction so that if and when the properties are put into different hands, then that at that point that would trigger recording the reciprocal parking and access. Mark, do you have any additional on that?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. If you refer to engineering condition of approval number 8, it states that easements shall be provided for reciprocal access and utility service as needed at the time of site development. We could easily add parking to that condition.
Mr. Sternfels, yeah, your hand is still up. I don't know if that's intentional or just popped up there. Okay, so no.
I did have another question, Mr. Chair.
On that note, since we've got Mark on the phone and he provided one option for potentially addressing this under the engineering condition number 8, would that satisfy your concern? And I have the same concern, and it's not just at the time of separation like this would carry forward.
Well, absent having a project to see, right, or understanding what the proposed future development is or what it looks like, it's hard to tell and hard for me to be comfortable making a decision one way or another in this context. And so for that reason, I want to be protective of that space in the future should the parcels become owned by different ownership.
So I liked David's approach, but maybe we can come back to that after other commissioners have had a chance to comment. Sorry, Mr. Sternfels, you had another comment as well.
I just wanted to hear if the applicant could share what, like, is there an intention for future proposed development there? Because that would help me actually think through this question.
Okay, if the applicant could, and if the applicant should desire to come on and introduce yourself, please.
Mitch, would you like me to address this comment, or would you like to address this?
Mr. Engstrom, your sound is muted, or your mic is muted.
I do know at this point, when the application was originally submitted, there was a retail tenant potentially going to be going in there. We don't know at this point in time who will be taking that parcel, and we don't know what the actual development is going to look like at this point. But Mitch, if you'd like to expand on that.
Sorry, I was technical difficulties on my part. We have within the CC&Rs and the development agreement for future use, there is shared parking between both parcels, and we have been working on easements, and we wanted to get through today in order to record that with Matt as well. So we have all these concerns that you guys have brought up are being addressed with U.S. Bank and Engstrom Properties for any future development moving forward, and it is going to be recorded with the deed. If that answering any questions.
One big question while you are on the line: would you be comfortable with the addition of a condition that specifies that this will be included at the time of the map? In other words, a condition that specifies reciprocal access and parking, just so it's documented. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant, of staff? Thank you, Mr. Engstrom. All right, with that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. and bring it back to the commission for deliberation or any additional comments. Okay, what I heard was actually not a lot. This doesn't sound like a complicated project. It is in the central business district, so it does make sense that we utilize the land that's available. And this seems like a reasonable spot given that it is right next to a freeway, at least the on-ramp, adjacent on-ramp. So what I heard was generally, it sounded like an acceptance of staff recommendation with the addition of a condition described by Mr. Tilley, where reciprocal parking agreements would be required at, David, I can't remember if it was the time of the pulling of the map or another trigger.
They really would need them at any such time as that they sell off one of the parcels so that the parcels are in different ownerships. That would really be the trigger for needing that, because while it's all under one ownership, it's kind of moot. But presumably dividing the property, they may decide to sell one of the parcels to another party. That's the time when you would need those easements really recorded. So a deed restriction basically saying prior to sale, need to record, reciprocal parking easements, and access would really be the technique. It's a bit blunt, but since we only have one property owner currently, and you really can't grant an easement to yourself.
So at the time of sale, easements for reciprocal drive aisles and parking shall be recorded?
Yeah, so basically what we'll do short term would be a deed restriction that says that they'll need to have those at the time of sale, whenever that may be, even if it's in 20 years from now or 2 weeks from now. It's really when that occurs is what's critical. And if they end up holding these properties forever, then it's moot.
And procedural, this is a new one. How do we recommend including such deed restriction? It's not a standard condition that I'm familiar with. And I know I've probably seen this. It's been a while.
Well, we would probably record it such that at the time when the map records also, we record those simultaneously. The deed restriction will be a separate instrument. It wouldn't be on the face of the map.
I'm sorry, how does the planning commission record this?
We need a condition added that would say prior to or concurrent with recording the tentative parcel, recording the parcel map, a deed restriction will be included that says prior to a sale, the parking and reciprocal access agreements would be established. That's the gist of it. Mr. City Attorney, are you rapidly firing off some formal language on this?
I haven't started typing yet, but I think what we could get from the commission would be direction to staff to come up with the specific language, but just have the concept adopted in the motion.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Sternfeld, you have your hand raised.
I do. I just, Mr. Tilley, if you could take a moment to help me contrast the alternative you're proposing to what Mr. Collier proposed earlier regarding condition 8 and maybe being a bit softer of approach of adding parking to those existing list of easements. And I'm wondering do we accomplish the same thing a softer way than your proposal, or is it actually different?
Well, I think really the question here is timing. We need those, you really need those easements when or if one of the two properties is sold to another party. Because if there's parking for the bank on the south parcel, if they sell the south parcel to somebody else, the bank loses its parking, as an example. So it's most critical for this to be established at such time as a sale of one of the parcels, so that they're no longer in common ownership.
Okay, thank you.
just for edification, is it easier to just simply add it to condition 8? Is it easier for the applicant than just to have it as a built-in condition versus requiring it to be put on the deed or putting a deed restriction out?
I think condition number 8, it says at the time of site development. So I think what's being said is that it needs to be at the time of sale. So I think a separate condition would make more sense.
Okay. Was that Mr. Boer who, I don't know who was speaking there?
I believe that was the applicant's representative.
Yes, that was Ethan.
Okay, so it appears that the applicant would prefer a separate.
Meltzer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If you can provide us that direction as part of a motion, we can get the language, pinned down offline if that would be okay with the commission, as Mr. City Attorney suggested.
Great. I think I would appreciate that. Is anyone ready or prepared to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move staff's proposed action to approve the project with additional direction to staff to provide additional condition of approval regarding reciprocal access of parking should one of the parcels be sold to a different owner in the future.
All right, thank you. Moved by Mr. Sternfels.
Leonard on a second.
Seconded by Commissioner Leonard. Mr. Clerk, could we please get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Austin,
Aye.
Commissioner Vu,
Aye.
Commissioner Sternfels,
Aye.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Leonard,
Aye.
Commissioner Berliner,
Aye.
Chair Liebig.
Aye. All right, thank you, and good luck on the project.
Thank you guys very much.
Next on the agenda is item number 6, public hearing regarding the Kierland tentative subdivision map 5159 and design review. Before I pass this off to staff, Mr. Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
There are no public comments on this item.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Allen.
This project is a tentative subdivision map application for condominium purposes, a plan development permit, minor deviations from the Washington specific plan, and design review. The tentative subdivision map is for the creation of one lot containing 16 condominiums. The applicant is also requesting a plan development permit to allow for minor deviations from the Washington specific plan. The applicant is requesting these deviations from the setback requirements. The current Washington specific plan was adopted in 1996 and does not adequately reflect the current goals and policies that are contained within General Plan 2035 for higher density infill development. And the deviations would allow for a high density project and are consistent with other setback deviations that the Planning Commission has approved on recent projects in Washington. The project is subject to design review. The applicant is proposing to construct 16 townhome units on the site. The units plan to utilize horizontal fiber cement board siding in varying widths and fiber cement panels along the first floor frontages of both buildings 1 and 2. These finishes will respect the traditional nature of the site while providing for articulation and textural context within the surroundings. The upper floors will utilize cement plaster The upper floors contain wire mesh guardrails, which are found on the second floors. The buildings will also have a varying roof line and use a diverse paint palette to add some visual articulation to the buildings. The units in building number 1 front onto F Street and will feature brightly colored doors in several different colors. The garages in the projects face the interior drive aisle, which is accessed off of 4th Street. The project also includes a common area, which includes a patio area with tables and benches, and also retains a large heritage oak tree on the project site. This concludes my presentation. The applicant is here should you have any questions, although they don't have a formal presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. At this point, I will open the public hearing just in case there are comments of the applicant. And I will look to the commission for comments and questions.
One question, this is Commissioner Leonard. On the frontage along, 4th Street, we have, is there any plan for the utilities that are up there? Or are they staying in place? Those utility poles and their wires look relatively close to the edges of the house. Oh wait, I see. I'm sorry, there's a setback there with the park. So it looks like we're set back a little bit, and there are some conductors there to unit 1, or that are close to unit 1. Because that's not that big of a deal when it affects only one house. So I apologize. I was just talking myself through the question, and I have that answered. But is there any plan at all for those utilities, or are they just going to be staying in place, just as a point of understanding?
Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't one of the conditions to underground the utilities?
Yes, condition of approval number 27 requires the undergrounding of the overhead utilities across the project frontage on the public right of way, unless otherwise approved or waived by the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Leonard, are those all of your questions?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Sternfels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for, I think, city staff. The building 2 entrances appear to be on the back side of the buildings, which would be, my understanding is correct, kind of on the property line between this project. Is the other side of that project between 4th and G, isn't that the co-housing project site we just approved?
I believe you are correct that is that project.
So I'm just interested to maybe hear from the applicant even, or city staff on the interplay between the back entrances, the main front doors to these buildings and these units in building 2 being along that back property line, knowing that that other project basically had their back parking lot and trash area also on the back side of their property. And it seems like those two things will be butting together. So I'm wondering about what does fencing look like between the two properties? And also kind of what is the aesthetic there? And is there a lighting and things like that to keep that back alley, which seems kind of narrow, safe? So sorry, that was like 3 questions in one. Apologize.
Were you looking for the applicant to address that, or? Can't hear you.
I apologize. If you have any specific comments, I'd like to hear from city staff, but I'd also like to hear from the applicant if that's okay.
I think I'll let the Mr. Harvey address that
Sure.
for the applicant.
Hi, Philip Harvey with Cushman Architects, the applicant on the project, representing the Hanleys. And so on that edge, so when we started this project, actually, there was no development plan on the other side of that property line. But we will be putting up there'll be a fence there, a wood fence. It's a corridor. It'll have a sidewalk in it, and it'll be landscaped so that it's more like a functional kind of paseo that accesses the front doors of those units, and it comes off the common space. So you kind of walk through an open area and then down there along the front. We'll also have the doors. We'll have we try to do the doors in different colors to kind of add a little bit of individuality to each unit, and those will also help to brighten up that area as well. And then there will also be lights on the buildings. The front porches will have lights that will light up that area, so we'll have security and safety as well. So unfortunately, we won't be really interfacing, but we will. We're taking ways to aesthetically make it a little bit more pleasing for the access to the front of these homes that are on the interior property line.
Okay, thank you. That is all, Chair.
Ms. Austin.
Yeah, hi, thank you for that, for coming back before us. As far as some of the requests on like the setbacks and such, I don't have the exact specifics, but they're fairly consistent with setbacks that we've approved for the Bridge District. And I think that this is patently sort of the very similar sort of densities in an urban setting. And so I'm comfortable with that. I've just got a few comments from kind of a design review perspective. I really like the use of colors in the roof line to break up the massing on F Street. So it looks really good. I think that we could probably do a little bit more on 4th Street, you know, and I'm not the architect, but maybe it's alternating colors, something like that. The materials on the 2nd and 3rd floor being the same and not necessarily being broken up by the sort of hardy plank product. We have sort of shingles on the 1st floor, and then the 2nd and 3rd floor are just a little bit more kind of a single, I don't know, kind of monolithic or something. So just looking at alternatives for that. I don't have any specific requests, just ideas. I'm comfortable with the way that it is, but those are things you could probably address later. And then the other piece that I want to address is piggybacking on Commissioner Sternfeld's comments. One thing that we recognize is that there are growing pains when you're doing infill development and increasing density in a particular area. So what's great is we're going to have a lot of this type of development coming into this area. So thank you and your applicant team for doing this type of work in West Sacramento. But I just want to make sure that we're being thoughtful. So things that have come up in the past, actually probably related to the public comment that we received on another item for today's agenda, was around like local residents, visitor parking. So not just for the residents who are moving in, but the folks who are there. So just kind of being thoughtful on that. I don't think that we need to change anything right now, but just some things for us to kind of think about. That might mean marking parking that can help. It's not really marked out there, and there's some areas in the Washington neighborhood where we've put more designated parking that kind of helps folks understand where they can and can't park. Also, so we can fit vehicles in there more efficiently. And then the ingress and egress for waste, as well as where we're going to put the trash cans. And it's shocking to me, like, you know, there's all this like wonderful design and wonderful planning that's going on. And then these little details are the things that matter. And so I apologize. I'm kind of struggling with toggling back and forth between my screen and my little screen and trying to look at things. But I don't know if maybe we could do a screen share and we can kind of point out, are people going to be bringing out their garbage cans and putting them on the street? Is the idea for Waste Management to come in down the drive aisle and then come out again? Does someone want to respond to that?
Sure. Yeah, we've actually met with Waste Management, and they will be coming down the drive aisle to pick up the trash. We won't be putting the trash cans out on the street.
Thank you. I know that, you know, that seems like a really trivial thing, but it is definitely a point of contention in places like Midtown.
It's okay. I live in Midtown Sacramento, so I know what it's like. So
Yeah, it like really matters.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sounds great. So going down the drive aisle and having that approved is good. And then that makes me a little more comfortable with concerns about changes to street parking. So those are just some general comments. Otherwise, I'm generally supportive of the staff recommendation.
Well, and one thing I'd like to point out too is on the 4th Street elevation, the home on the right in the elevation, the colored elevations, is actually where the big tree is. So the developer has made a commitment to retain, it's really a beautiful oak tree there. And that's why the common space is there. So when you look at that elevation, that building will be further back and you'll have the tree and the open space there along 4th Street as well. So it'll be nice kind of entrance to the community.
That really helps. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Castillo, I saw that you had your hand up, but it also disappeared. So do you have any comments? No questions. Okay. Any others? Not seeing any hands. Okay. So I do have a couple of questions for the applicant, Mr. Harvey. Are all the units the same? They do appear to be, every single one of them seem to be very, very much similar, except maybe flip-flopped.
They're all the same except flip-flop. That's correct.
Okay. That's not something that we would necessarily be deciding on. That was just a point of curiosity for me.
Sure.
And I'm not a salesperson, so I don't know how these, what drives the market sometimes. I do know that we try and fill our community with a variety of homes for the variety of needs. And this is one project, therefore could fill a variety of this type of need.
Right.
I'm just curious about the single type. But when you combine that with Ms. Austin's comment, it does create a more uniform look. And she was bringing up the aesthetics, but when you put the underlying architecture behind it, it does create a very uniform look. And so an attempt to potentially break it up a little bit more, I think Bernadette would probably have the best idea on how to do that. I wasn't prepared to do that on the fly, so.
Sure. And frankly, that's one of the challenges. The homes are all the same, but they do book match and flip flop. But also, if you notice, we're using color. I think that was mentioned by Kathy, and the vertical elements to kind of break up the mass so that you have a lot of movement going on in the elevation as well. So it's not just one big block. It has a lot of variety going on. So we really try hard to do that. But it's only 16 homes. It's not a lot, but this is a 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and about 1,000 square feet. So they're pretty efficient homes. And, we think the developer believes that this is the market and the price point that would work over there we want to get residents in there. So it's important.
I have one comment on the aesthetics and the function of the building. Unfortunately, like mine is like, it's not feasible for this project, but I do want to bring it up. The location of the doors on the sidewalks are making me a little uncomfortable. The Washington neighborhood, I don't want to say it's all historic. It's a variety of homes from a variety of eras dating back to Victorian, all the way, we've got 1950s, 1970s, all the way up to modern. And so following the Washington specific plan, where we're attempting to match the character of the neighborhood under the existing plan, is difficult because the character of the neighborhood isn't clearly defined. But the doors being right on the sidewalks is a little bit odd, and that doesn't quite fit. I think the other homes in the neighborhood, which have either setback stoops or stairs up to steps, which you may see in more traditional, say, row housing where there's a stairs to a stoop. I do understand it's not feasible in this project, but maybe encourage staff and projects coming forward if we can think of ways to get that front door off the sidewalk so it's not quite right there. It might help feel the character of the neighborhood. That's a complicated one, and again, I'm not willing to kill a project on this one. I've just noticed this pattern coming up over and over. Okay, I heard one comment for change, and that was potential changes to the street parking via marking. Did I miss anybody else's comments on potential things to address on the project? Everybody's very quiet tonight. Okay. Mr. Tilley or Mr. Collier, since you are on the line, were there plans to add additional striping or marking or not? Because this is part of the Washington specific area. So maybe we aren't putting marking out.
You know, personally, I'm not aware of any plans for any future additional striping in that neighborhood. The commission may recall the city did do a very large infrastructure project in there and finished that about a year ago. It didn't touch every single block of that neighborhood, but most of it. But since we are updating the specific plan currently, that is something that we can look at is would the district benefit from some additional striping for parking in that area?
And if I can just clarify my comments, I don't think that we need to have this be like a condition of approval. That's not what I'm suggesting. But to David's point, that's kind of what I'm saying is that the city has taken it upon ourselves to make some of these changes to make as we're pivoting to more dense development. And so, for example, instead of unmarked parallel parking, there could be angled parking, which allows for more spaces. And then conversely, we can also look at, shared, ride share parking, that kind of stuff. So just kind of thinking that through. And so it's more of a question or comment for the city for us to kind of think about, because we have this development and of course the co-op coming in. So we're going to have a lot of new residents in this area.
Yeah, no, we'll be looking at parking holistically in the district through the specific plan update.
Perfect. That satisfies my inquiry. Thank you.
Sounds good. Any other comments or questions directed towards the applicant? Mr. Sternfels? No? Okay.
I'll reserve it for after you close the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay. For that, okay, with that, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for deliberation. And now, Mr. Sternfels.
I just want to share my excitement for this project tonight, not just because of, I think, the fact that I think it's a good project, but because we're now starting to see entire blocks of underutilized vacant parcels in this district now be completely filled up. And, in the last year, if you look at all the projects we've seen, well over half of them have been in this neighborhood. And so it's super exciting to see. And I'm glad to know we've got an applicant who's caring about the development and has been paying attention to what's going on and investing in the area. And I'm just super excited to see all of these developments that we've been looking at over the last year come to fruition. So I just want to take a moment, thank the applicant, recognize that even though it's a smaller project, it is very meaningful into completing the neighborhood. And I appreciate the work on it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sternfels. Any other comments on the project? Okay, I'm going to echo.
Chair,
Vice Chair Austin.
I didn't raise my hand. I raised it actually, not virtually. I'll just second what Commissioner Sternfels said. So it's exciting to see development going on in this neighborhood. This is a great design, and some of the projects that we've referenced have really been great developments. What I like is that they're continuing to add to some kind of housing stock diversity that we need. So I like that they are smaller units. Hopefully that's going to assist with making it at not a fully affordable, but a more achievable price point that's consistent with some of the income levels in our region. And so, yeah, so I'm excited as well. So thank you for working on this project. Projects of this size are challenging, and infill development is challenging. So I appreciate these efforts.
Thank you, Vice Chair Austin. Any other comments? Okay, I would like to echo both Commissioner Sternfels and Austin. I'm very excited about all of the projects coming up in the Washington area. I think it's a cool neighborhood, and I love seeing it come to life. And particularly since I kind of live up in that direction, this neighborhood has changed dramatically over the past 10 years. It's very difficult to even imagine what it used to look like. And it was quiet, like unbelievably quiet. And it's slowly coming to life, and it's looking pretty sharp. And I am loving every project. So also on Ms. Austin's note, I don't necessarily feel that we need to be adding any striping or marking or anything like that. That is a city thing. Not only that, I think a holistic approach, as Mr. Tilley mentioned, would be the wiser approach. Given that, I don't have any requests for revisions. So I would seek a motion.
Move to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Vu. Can I get a second?
I will second. I was going to wait for Commissioner Leonard, but Commissioner Austin moving with a second.
Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, can I get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Sternfeld,
Aye.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Leonard,
Aye.
Commissioner Berliner,
Aye.
Commissioner Austin,
Aye.
Commissioner Vu,
Aye.
Chair Liebig.
Aye. All right, thank you so much. It approves unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, while I pull my agenda back up, that is the end of our regular agenda, and moving on to General Administration Function Part 2, informal discussion. I do have a request from Mr. Sternfels.
I just had two requests for follow-up from Mr. Tilley, if he'd be kind enough. The first was, I noticed there's a new residential development on larger lots off of Gregory that is about midway complete. And at the street entrance off of Gregory, they have an entryway that includes what looks like a decorative gate. And it appears decorative. It's clearly not electronic or badge access only, but it also appears like it could be closed. And so I just wanted to check in on that project because I don't recall if it came to us or not, and I don't recall if there's conditions on it, but I know that we've been really clear about our feelings on gates in front of communities and the messages and signals they send. And so when I saw it, I was kind of just surprised by it and wanted to check in. Don't necessarily need an answer tonight unless you have one off the top of your head. Then I have one more item. I'll let you respond first.
Yeah, actually, I'll have to look into that one too. That one's not ringing a bell with me either, exactly which project that was, but we'll check it out.
And then the other item I had, since we've been spending so much time talking about Washington District, is I know we have the project on 3rd and F that this commission approved that kind of got stalled out due to some what appeared to be legal issues with the ownership. I was wondering if you had just heard anything on that project and its status, because I know it's been sitting. This is the condos right by the railroad tracks across from La Crosta.
That's 3rd and D Streets.
Oh, sorry, wrong. You're correct. Wrong letter there. But
yes,
it's been there a little over a year now, boarded up, and I'm starting to get a little more nervous about it.
No, as are we. That one, we did get some intel on that recently. That one went into receivership. It's a whole sordid tale. And unfortunately, they have not been able to secure a buyer to take that project and finish it out. So that one may be it's likely going to be a while until you see any activity on it. It's very unfortunate. But.
It is. Thank you for letting me know, though. That was all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any other informal discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to just share as a reminder, we are in fire season. We will be entering flood season when fire season's over. And so if folks haven't already, this is a really good time to sign up for Alert System. There's a great program where you can sign up for alerts for various incorporated communities and the cities in Yolo, Placer, and Sacramento counties. You can enter through any of those counties' websites, but if you just search emergency alerts, Yolo County as an example, let's say that you live in West Sacramento and work in Elk Grove or work in Sacramento, you can sign up for various alerts. And I just recommend folks doing that. We're safe now, but we have a lot of folks who've been impacted just directly west of us in Solano County, and we have a lot of folks who evacuated. So I would, in addition to that friendly reminder to sign up for emergency alerts, I also wanted to adjourn recognizing the many people throughout our state who've been impacted by fires in and around our area in particular.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Austin. With that, I would like to adjourn tonight's Planning Commission meeting. Thank you all, and everybody stay safe. Try and stay inside. The conditions outside are not really favorable for a lot of outside time. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tom.
Good night, everyone.